Good morning. Let's get right to it. Our exclusive guest this week, the president's top attorney, Rudy Giuliani. Mayor Giuliani, thanks for joining us this morning.
Good morning, George.
The president said you're going to get the facts straight, so let's try to get some facts on the table to begin with. The president does acknowledge meeting Stormy Daniels, correct?
Gee, I'm not really involved in the Daniels thing, so I don't know. I mean, he denies that it happened. She has written a letter denying it.
Well, we do have a picture of them together. So the president...
Well, it depends on what you mean by met her, right?
Well, yeah, there's the picture right there. I just want to get that fact on the table.
Well, it looks like my friend Donald Trump before he was president, but and that looks like the woman who was on Saturday Night Live last night.
That's right, but does the...
Now, that's pretty interesting. I think she kind of... God, if I were her lawyer, I'd be very upset. Fame and fortune, let me make money. How is she damaged? She's become rich as a result of this. 130,000 doesn't mean anything. Boy, I wish that was my case.
So the president does deny any sexual relationship with Stormy Daniels.
He has. I have not. I'm not. As I said, I'm not involved in that. But the reality is, he denies it. She denied it. Then, when it was opportunistic, right before the election, she came forward, and then, of course, the whole thing happened with Michael Cohen, and it's history now because it wasn't a campaign, anything.
But let me just, because you say it's history. When did the president first learn that Stormy Daniels wanted money to keep quiet about the relationship?
Don't know, and doesn't matter to me. What matters to me are two things. There are two relevant legal things, which is what my job is. Number one, it was not a campaign contribution because it would have been done anyway. This is the kind of thing that I've settled for celebrities and famous people. Every lawyer that does that kind of work has. And number two, even if it was considered a campaign contribution, it was entirely reimbursed out of personal funds, which I don't think we'll even get to because the first one's enough. So, well, case closed for Donald Trump. And I think for Michael Cohen, who I think got a big boost with Judge Ellis's comments the other day.
But let's show the other day you also told BuzzFeed, though, that at some point after the 2016 election, Michael Cohen had complained to some people that he hadn't been paid by Donald Trump, and that so then you said Cohen met with Trump and told him, and Giuliani said that we'll cover your expenses. They worked out this $35,000 a month retainer after that. So the president did know about this after the campaign.
I can't say that. I mean, at some point, yes, but it could have been recently. It could have been a while back. Those are the facts that we're still working on, and that, may be in a little bit of dispute. This is more rumor than it is anything else.
Well, that's what you said. You said that to BuzzFeed.
But here's well, yeah. I mean, that's one of the possibilities and one of the rumors. The reality is...
You stated it as fact.
Well, maybe I did, but right now I'm at the point where I'm learning, and I can't prove that. I can just say it's rumor. I could prove it's rumor, but I can't prove it's fact. Yeah, maybe we will.
But you've said as a matter of fact on Hannity and BuzzFeed. You talked to the Washington Post about it.
I don't know. How do you separate fact and opinion? Well, when I state an opinion, I'll say this is my opinion, and when I state a fact, I'll say this is a fact.
You said the president worked out a retainer agreement with Michael Cohen after the election in order to repay him for the settlement to Stormy Daniels.
The second part of it, the last part of it, the retainer agreement was to repay expenses, which turns out to have included this one to the woman that you saw on Saturday Night Live last night, trying to make more money. And now our NDA with her seems to be irrelevant because she wants to break it up because she wants to make a lot more money than $130,000. I never thought $130,000. I know this sounds funny to people there at home. I never thought $130,000 was a real payment. It's a nuisance payment. When I settled this when it was real or a real possibility, it's a couple $1 million, not $130,000. But people don't go away for $130,000 of a meritorious
You did
claim.
call it a settlement payment. The president did make these payments to Michael Cohen over the course of 2017, according to you. Then why did, on April 5th, why did the president deny any knowledge of the payments when, in fact, he had made the payments?
I don't know when the president learned about it. He could have learned about it after, or not connected the whole thing at that time. The reality is, those are not facts that worry me as a lawyer. Those don't amount to anything, what is said to the press. That's political. What matters to me as a lawyer
to lie to
is...
the press?
Gee, I don't know. You know a few presidents who did that. I don't think that this president has done that. But in any event, that's not the crime. The crime is, was it a campaign contribution? Not a campaign contribution. 100%. People want to avoid that conclusion because it gets them out of trouble, and it makes the whole investigation and the tactics that we use by the prosecutors totally repugnant.
But as you know, the law says that any payment in connection with the campaign could be considered something that has to be reported. And Michael, hold on, let me just finish the question, and then you can respond. And Michael Avenatti, Stormy Daniels' lawyer, says there's a great deal of evidence, contemporaneous evidence at the time, that they did in fact discuss the campaign.
Michael Avenatti is going to say what he has to say to collect his money. So I know he's coming on later, and people can judge why the heck he let it go on Saturday Night Live if this is a serious case and not a comedy. But the reality is, here's the test, not of Michael Avenatti, not of me, but of the Campaign Finance Commission. If it could be for any other purpose, even if the purpose is campaign, any other purpose, if a man buys a suit, if a woman buys a dress, it cannot be considered a campaign contribution. Now, this was for another purpose, to protect him, to protect his family. It may have involved the campaign, doesn't matter. And it would have been done under any other circumstances if there was no campaign.
If that's the case, then why wasn't
And I can prove that it has been done on numerous times, not necessarily with President Trump, but with many other people that I and other lawyers have represented.
If it could have been done at any other time, she gave an interview back in 2011. There was a blog post back in 2011. She was on radio shows earlier as well. Why didn't the president make the payment earlier?
I don't know. Maybe she didn't demand it earlier. You're not going to pay if there's no demand. I have no idea what the history of her representation was. I do think it's suspect that she waits until the very last minute with regard to the campaign and where you could get the maximum personal damage against the president. Back in 2011, he was a celebrity, but he wasn't running for president of the United States. Now, that adds to the situation. It doesn't create any additional motivation of them. Primary motivation is personal. A long history of doing that she and Avenatti and the other lawyers don't have anything to do with. And I'm very comfortable with that part of the case, George.
Mayor Giuliani,
it's the Mueller part of the case that I came in for.
And I want to get to that as well.
Mayor, that one's gone. That one's gone. I think if you ask the prosecutors off the record, they would tell you that's gone.
We want to get to that because there were even interviews as late as this week where people said that it was clear to them coming out of those interviews that it wasn't gone. But even the president's allies are having a hard time believing that Mr. Trump reimbursed Michael Cohen without knowing what it was for. Here's Andrew Napolitano on Fox.
If Rudy wants the public to believe that Donald Trump reimbursed Michael Cohen $130,000 and didn't know what it was for, didn't know that it was going to silence Stormy Daniels, that is unworthy of belief.
How do you respond to Andrew Napolitano?
Well, the judge doesn't know the facts of the case. He knows less about the facts of the case than I do. Wonderful guy, Judge Napolitano, but he really shouldn't be speculating on facts that he doesn't know. And I think he would regret that if he thought about it. $130,000 between a lawyer and a client, and a client who's worth billions, is not, George. I don't like saying this. Not a great deal of money. 1.3 million is a great deal of money. That's the kind of money you would think of as a settlement money. If I saw $130,000, I would never think it was to settle a substantial claim against my client.
So are you confident that Michael Cohen never told President Trump that I made this payment in order to make an agreement with Stormy Daniels?
Number one, why would I be, and why would I be concerned when it's not a campaign contribution? It was done for other purposes in addition to possible campaign purposes. End of case.
But you do acknowledge...
It was repaid. End of case.
But you acknowledge that Michael Cohen would tell the president this is what it's for.
On October 15th, 16th, right before the election, $130,000 payment when there were other... I did make clear, and I don't know what they are yet. I will know. There were other things involved that had nothing to do with Stormy Daniels. In other words, other amounts of money. This was not uncommon for him to do that. So... no, I would not. If I were him and I were the president's lawyer, and I had done this in the past, and it had worked out in the past, I would not go to him and bother him 2 weeks before the election with this thing.
But certainly before April 5th, 2018, the president knew that Michael Cohen had made these payments because he, in fact, had reimbursed Michael Cohen for them.
I don't know, and I don't think it's at all relevant anymore. This is another tangent like, chasing the Flynn tangent when it turns out that John Kerry is now violating the Logan Act, and nobody seems to care. You haven't asked me about it.
Even if this was not a campaign finance violation,
we missed John Kerry.
Right. Even if this was not a campaign finance violation, as you say, this was was a liability to Michael Cohen. Why didn't the president include that liability on his financial disclosure form?
Well, how could he if he didn't know it? Right? I mean, first of all, it isn't a liability, it's an expense. I don't think those are included. So I'm representing the president, let's say, and I came down to Washington this weekend. That's a certain expense. I bill him for it 3 months from now or 2 months from now. That's not a loan. He's not loaning me money. I'm my law firm, or I, in this case I, because I'm representing him individually, I lay out the money, and then he pays me back. Sometimes those expenses go on for a couple of years.
But but you even called it a settlement payment, so this would be something that he owes Michael Cohen. He didn't file his financial disclosure until June of 2017. He knew he had this liability to Michael Cohen.
George,
he
it's
didn't
not a
include
loan
it on his financial disclosure form.
But it's not a loan. It's an expense. You don't include all legal fees or all legal payments on your financial disclosure form. And how can you do it when you don't know about it? I don't think anyone believes that he knew about it at the time. I think there's a question about when did he find out.
No, but before June
2017,
you've said that he made this agreement with Michael Cohen before June 2017.
The agreement with Michael Cohen, as far as I know, is a long-standing agreement that Michael Cohen takes care of situations like this, then gets paid for them sometimes. Gets paid for them sometimes. It's reimbursed in another way. It depends on whether it's business or personal.
Is Michael Cohen still the president's attorney?
No, of course not. It would be a conflict right now for him to be the president's attorney. I am in this respect. So is Jay Sekulow. So are the Raskins. And then, of course, he has White House counsel, as you know from working in the White House. That's not quite your attorney. That's really the presidency's attorney.
Correct. And you said this was a regular arrangement he had with Michael Cohen. So did Michael Cohen make payments to other women for the president?
I have no knowledge of that. But I would think if it was necessary, yes. He made payments for the president, or he conducted business for the president, which means he had legal fees, monies laid out, and expenditures, which I have on my bills to my clients.
And are you confident that his testimony on the Stormy Daniels payment won't contradict the president?
Not in any material respect. Look, if it didn't contradict it at all, somebody would be lying. I remember that great cross-examination when the person just repeated the things over and over again the same way. Of course, there'll be minor details. On the two main facts, was it for another purpose other than just campaign? Even if it was campaign, yes, it was to settle a personal issue that would be embarrassing to him and his wife. Number two, did he repay it over a period of time and then find out ultimately what it was about? Yes. I'm comfortable with that. That's 100%. And that's why these people who think they're chasing this down are involved in the same witch hunt that Judge Ellis was so concerned about with Mueller.
They had dinner in March, a phone call 2 weeks ago. Any other communication? And are you sure they didn't discuss the Stormy Daniels payment during these conversations?
I don't think it's a good idea for the two of them to talk right now. Eventually they can. They're very good friends. I kind of miss Michael's advice. I think Jay does also. But right now, the best thing to do is through the lawyers. We have a very good relationship with his two lawyers, and we're going to continue to do that. And that has worked out for us. If they had conversations before this, no harm. I mean, again, that part of the case, George, I am very comfortable is gone. I got to focus my attention on the Mueller part.
Are you concerned at all that Michael Cohen's going to cooperate with prosecutors?
No, I expect that he is going to cooperate with them. I don't think they'll be happy with it because he doesn't have any incriminating evidence about the president or himself. The man is an honest, honorable lawyer, and despite the Times article today, which is totally baseless as far as I can tell, but, you know, that's his lawyer's issue. We're there to help. My issue is getting up to speed on the facts here. I'm about halfway there. And
has the president or any member of the president's team ever suggested to Michael Cohen in any way that the president would pardon him if he were indicted or convicted?
Jay and I have made it clear, and Michael's lawyers all know that obviously is not on the table. That's not a decision to be made now. There's no reason to pardon anybody now.
So it hasn't been discussed?
It has not been discussed, and would not be discussed. Does the president have the unfettered power as President Clinton had, President Reagan? I used to have the pardon attorney work for me with President Reagan. He gave out 900 pardons, far fewer than Obama or President Trump. I'm a big believer in the pardon power. There are people I want to see get pardons like Michael Milken, who I prosecuted. But right now, pardons would be, they wouldn't be illegal to talk about. They'd be kind of confusing.
And let's talk about the Mueller investigation. The president said again on Friday that he wants to speak with Mueller, answer his questions. So you're prepared to make that happen?
Not after the way they've acted. I came into this case with the desire to do that, and they just keep convincing me not to do it. First, they leak the questions. Then they do this whole thing.
Well, let me just stop you right there, because in fact, those questions were written by Jay Sekulow after a meeting with Mueller and his team, and these were your impression, the impression of the Trump team's take on the questions. And in fact, it was a document made by the Trump team. It wasn't something leaked by Mueller.
Well, something leaked by us. I know that. I mean, look, it may not have been. First of all, I don't think Bob Mueller leaks. Let's be clear about that. I think that people on a lower, I don't think his top guys leak or women. I think people below leak, and a lot of people saw these different documents. Could it have been somebody formally on our side? Could it have been somebody formally on theirs? I don't know. Main fact is, I don't care. My client's prejudiced by that, but in a way we were helped by it. So I guess that's why they suspect us. But we were helped inadvertently. We're helped because it shows he has no case. Three main issues, right? One is, was there collusion? Come on. Nobody believes anymore there was collusion.
Several questions on that list about collusion.
Well, there were questions about it because they don't have any answers, right? They wouldn't have to ask us if they had answers, right?
You know,
unless
Michael
they're trying to set up us
I know
for
you and the president keep on saying that, but Michael Caputo, who's worked on the campaign, just met with Mueller's team this week. He came out saying they asked a lot of questions about collusion. He came away quite concerned about Paul Manafort, Roger Stone, Rick Gates, and others.
Maybe he's less concerned now after Judge Ellis gave a pretty good indication that he might toss the case for government misconduct, that he might even have authority to conduct this investigation. He might have to go back to the Eastern District of Virginia. I would think Mr. Caputo could rest a little bit easy, although the man has been tortured. He's one of the people that, has to be looked at for some kind of compensation here. The man has been tortured. And what he's saying is they asked a lot of questions, but that doesn't mean they know anything.
Mayor, if the president's done nothing wrong, as you say again and again, and he tells the truth,
he hasn't done anything wrong, George.
I know, and if he tells the truth as you would advise him to do, what is the danger in answering Robert Mueller's questions?
Because they're trying to trap. You couldn't put a lawyer on this show who wants to keep his law license to tell you he should testify.
But it's only a trap if the president doesn't tell the truth.
No, it isn't. It's only prosecutable if they have some built-up, manipulated evidence to prove the president didn't tell the truth. Well, how often has that happened?
If you have evidence that proves he doesn't tell the truth, then the president didn't tell the truth.
No. People do things like lie. People lie. Could Comey be lying? You're damn right he could be lying, George. And we're going to walk ourselves into a trap like that?
Yeah, but
I couldn't.
If Mr. Comey lied to the special counsel, then he's the one who's vulnerable to perjury. If the president tells the truth, he's not.
And the special counsel has to be open to believing that. The special counsel so far seems to think that Comey is Moses, and I happen to think Comey is Judas.
But you believe the president is telling the truth. If you believe that, if you have that conviction, you're his attorney. Why don't you say, go in, talk to Robert Mueller, tell the truth?
Because I wouldn't be an attorney if I did that, George. I'd be living in some kind of unreal fantasy world that everybody tells the truth. I'm not going to set. They don't have a case on collusion. They don't have a case on obstruction, which is why they're asking all these cockamamie questions about what do you feel, what do you think. I'm going to walk them into a prosecution for perjury like Martha Stewart did. I mean, she'd tell you they weren't telling the truth. Martha Stewart would tell you that she told the truth, and they set her up.
What happens?
I don't know that. Well, I don't want to get into that case. I don't know.
Right, but what happens if Robert Mueller subpoenas the president? Will you comply?
Well, we don't have to. He's the president of the United States. We can assert the same privileges other presidents have. President Clinton negotiated a deal in which he didn't admit the effectiveness of the subpoena.
But he did testify before. Yeah, but he did testify before the grand jury. Is the president willing to do that? But
only for 2.5 hours, only with an arranged format. Would we be willing to do that? I'd rather have the Hillary Clinton treatment.
I think President Clinton was before.
But I would rather have the Hillary Clinton.
More than 2.5 hours.
No, he was 2.5 hours in the grand jury. Approximately, maybe 3. We'll take 3. But Hillary Clinton treatment is what I'm looking for. And that is no under oath, only a Q&A, and then we get the questions in advance, and they write the report 2 weeks before.
Well, he has briefed you on the topics he wants to discuss. Are you confident the president will not take the fifth in this case?
Oh, how can I ever be confident of that? When I'm facing a situation with the president and all the other lawyers are, in which every lawyer in America thinks he'd be a fool to testify, I've got a client who wants to testify. Please don't. He said it yesterday, and Jay and I said to ourselves, "My goodness, I hope we get a chance to tell him the risks that he's taking." So he may testify. And we may actually work things out with Bob Mueller, because working with him directly is good. But if they keep undermining it, and we have situations like Judge Ellis saying that they're out of control and they're not authorized, and they refuse to give the judge their authorization. What's going on with that, George? God almighty.
Final question. Do you still want Rod Rosenstein to shut down this investigation?
I do. I believe that after Judge Ellis's remarks last night, yesterday rather, on Friday, there's no question that the amount of government misconduct is accumulating. I happen to believe it's greater than anybody realizes. Very embarrassing to my former Justice Department, and very embarrassing not to FBI agents. Please, nobody attacking FBI agents, the Justice Department lawyers. We're attacking the formal leadership of both organizations.
Mr. Giuliani, thanks for your time this morning.
George, you've always fair. Thank you.
Take care.